Greetings, everyone. It is I, Tantus Dracovin, your Lord and Emperor, here at the Dracovin Empire. And I'm feeling tired. Don't mind me. I'm trying to mix up my intro here. Look at me, jeez. Anyway, welcome. We're talking about World of Darkness today. It's not an event with me without a little bit of friendly stuff, you know? It's a day of diving back, not only to the World of Darkness, but into Werewolf The Apocalypse. We're introducing a new Pharaoh, a new changing breed, the Gurahl. I'm probably butchering them a little bit. I'm going to try my best. It's just, again, I'm very bad at pronouncing anything in any language, English and beyond. So just keep that in mind about when I say anything. So if I mess up a pronunciation, it's not because I'm not trying to do it, it's just I'm very bad at not mispronouncing. That's the cut. So my question for the day, for those of you who are joining me live, or in the comments on the YouTube channel, have you played Gurahl before? Or had one in a group that you played with? Just as an interesting question. And remember, I do stream this live on Twitch, so you can always check out there, give a follow, and get some support there. Or if you're joining me later on in YouTube, or, after where you're done on Twitch, if you're joining me then, you can always check out the YouTube side, which a lot of you love to do. And give a comment, and subscription there, all that kind of stuff. Ring that bell. So, anyway, let's dive into it, because honestly, we do like getting started. And this was an interesting one today, because as you like to do, as I talk about, I like to do some research. And the thing is, normally speaking, when I'm very lucky, I have to only choose a couple of the books here. I did choose a couple of books, but I'm going to use them a lot more today, because this is one of those circumstances where the White Wolf Wiki, which I usually use as an outline, didn't have as much information as I wanted to give you folks. Normally, it gives you maybe 50 to 70% of the information I can share, and I get the rest of it from some extra information from the book sources I will be giving you in a second here. This is a circumstance where I'm going to talk about that a lot of what I'm going to talk about today came from two of these books. Much more so. This is less than 50%, I would say. So it's an interesting one today for a little bit of difference. But yeah, the White Wolf Wikipedia is a great place to start. It mentions a number of books there, but I can show you off the books that I feel out of ones that suggested to do some research on your own if you want to dive into depth of it. And I'll mention the two books that I'm using primarily here out of these beyond the Wikipedia site. But the original Werewolf The Apocalypse book, this is I think the revised edition, maybe, I'm not 100%, but older World of Darkness, Werewolf The Apocalypse, great place to start when it was introduced. From older ones, of course, Rites of Passage is a really tiny picture, but these are the ones that I find online. It gives some information about the rituals and stuff for you going into it. Of course, the Player's Guide to Changing Breeds is a great... The Player's Guide to Changing Breeds is a great place to do it because it was the earlier edition's introductions to this. But the main place out of these that I would recommend, of course, is the Gurahl book. This is actually one that I did reference here. We're not going to use it quite as much as a later book here, but I did look through here to kind of specify a lot of information. There's a lot of fluff in this book, but it is the book that will give you the most amount of information. And if you're looking for character-wise how to build a Gurahl character, this is probably the best place to get all that information from. Again, there are updated sources. Then there is the Werewolf Player's Guide. Small picture of it. This was the big one. Gives some information on it. And of course, the Changing Breeds book. Switch back and forth here. Which the Changing Breeds book... Motorcycle in December. Changing Breeds book is the one I actually used most of out of here. It has a very concise bits of information, presents it in a very reasonable manner. And so if you want to go through a lot of what I'm going to be talking about, a lot of it comes from here, and of course from the wiki page. Those two combined. So this is another one I would recommend. I'm not going to go into the mechanics part and some of the other details about it, but yeah, this is the place to do it. Some of the books that do provide some extra information is the Wild West Companion. It does provide some information, and of course the again, I have to go for a bigger one here. The Mindside Theater Laws of the Wild, Changing Breeds 2, which has Mokele and Gurahl in here. This is information that will be helpful to you. Anyway, so here's their basic classic symbol. let's go over some basics of who the Gurahl is. So, according to lore, and especially their lore, they were one of the original protectors. They were, of course, created to ward off the destructive power of the Pattern Breaker, which is their term for the worm. I'll go into detail a little bit about that in a second when I go through some of their history. But effectively, they were one of the early changing breeds created. They had a purpose in place. Their job was one of many that were created. There's a story to it. We'll go over it in the history. But effectively, they're the healers and protectors. They're not really warriors. They have been rarer since the War of Rage, since Garou targeted them for a specific reason. They know the secrets of resurrecting the dead. They are blessed by a guy with strong wills and many traits of the bear cousins, sense of smell, superior to humans, even when in non-human form, their eyesight is poor. They have control over biorhythms. They can speed up their metabolism, kind of change it. But they are susceptible to seasonal urges of bears, being kind of sluggish and lazy in winter. Alright, let's go over a little bit of the history. I gotta go to one of the books here for this one, because, So, the idea is that they call the triad, the wild, the weaver, and the worm, the yarn spinner, the tapestry maker, and of course the pattern breaker. And these were the creators of reality. They kind of got out of balance. The things that happened with them occurred. And so Gaia then created something else to help preserve the universe, the changing children, and gave them various jobs. Things like wolves went to war, the ravens for secrets, lizards to remember, and Gurahl basically was an understanding of her design. Not only for creating new life and weaving that exists, but knowing the most difficult for mortal beings, when endings is well and true. So sort of like they were supposed to be given this kind of overall understanding to help maintain what is created in its pattern, in its cycle, from creation to existence to end. The things that were part of the triad, they're not necessarily doing the job of the triad, they're maintaining the job of the triad and making sure it exists in all its proper balance. That was kind of the Gurahl's job, in a way. Maintenance of the systems in place. That's an interesting way of looking at it, but that's kind of the way to describe it here. So, they have the ability to alter not only their bodies, but their natures, this mercuriality, slow and deliberative processes, but still curious and playful. Joy of potential exists within them. And they were supposed to be kind of these almost like parent figures to the world. And they knew that the figurative winter would come eventually, and they would be needed, to be both strong in heart and body, to do what is time to protect the tapestry, the realm of existence. So they were given one of the most sacred gifts because of this, the ability to wrest the slain back from the lands of the dead. Effectively, when something is needed and is important and will help for the maintenance of the existence itself, they would use that. It's not something they're going to use just for the sake of using it. There has to be a good, honest reason for it. And, a reason for related to existence itself, because it is a very powerful thing, but it goes against nature itself in a way. So when they would defy nature, there must be a good reason to protect nature overall. Anyway, their strengths and weaknesses with the other children of Gaia complement each other, and things went together to serve the purpose. But the big thing is things fell out of sync, and this is when the Garou grew, basically, as the Gurahl see it, jealous of the other children and the gifts that they were specifically given and coveted them. And from the Gurahl themselves, they sought back to learn how to bring back the dead. Gurahl didn't want to share that. They realized that they would bring back every warrior slain in battle to continue the battle against the Pattern Breaker, and then it would just destroy the cycle of life and death. Of course, the Garou found out they would not share, so they basically spread word that the Gurahl was hoarding Gaia's gifts, and so things got kind of dark for her, and then the War of Rage broke out. And, they basically tried to hunt down all the bear shifters they could. They annihilated entire tribes, torturing them, but none of them gave up the secret of rebirth. And so, basically, in order to save their breed, and the secrets that were entrusted to them, they withdrew from the world. Some left their bodies and moved into the Umbra, seeking the Summerlands. Others went to the Umbral Glades and fell into a deep sleep, and they were basically thought to be extinct. And centuries went by without them, and only 2 remained awake and present to monitor the changes in the world. So, great-grandfather and great-grandmother, as they're called, are the only 2 Gurahl that remained in the world. The entire rest of their breed was either extinct or slumbering within the Umbra. When Stormeater, a massive bane that basically threatened to destroy all of North America, emerged and threatened the Gurahl's remaining kin, many of them awoke in mass, offering their services to Garou to fight it. They reluctantly agreed, and the healers returned to their sacred duty. Basically, it's sort of like there was a threat, the Garou were having trouble, and all of a sudden, these people they thought they had slaughtered years ago emerged and basically was like, we shall help you. And it's like, what the fuck? We killed you all. What? You're here to help us? What? The thing is, Gurahl have an understanding here. Maybe they don't necessarily forgive, but still, they do it for the better good of things, and they understand the Garou's place. So they fight to increase their numbers, and they're ready for the battle, whether it be healing or cleansing, or if it is desperate, to actually go into that. And that's where we have the Gurahl today. An interesting kind of history there. Let's talk about some things about them, their breeds and their auspices for a second. So they only have 2 breeds, those that are Hamet and those that are Ursaring. There are no Metis Gurahl. Basically, for Gurahl, mates are chosen through special rituals, but if 2 Gurahl do mate ever, no child is born of their union. So basically, they are, I guess the best way to say it is, infertile to each other. But, so it's not that they couldn't get together, there's nothing results from it. As for auspices, they have 5 of them, which are like Garou's corresponding face of the moon. Their auspices are not fixed, however. Each progresses through all 5 in their order as I'm going to go through them during their lifetime, though individuals might spend more or less time at certain ones. And I'll talk about their equivalents. There's the Arrakis, the new moon, equivalent to Ragabash. The Uzumeti, the full moon, equivalent to Arun. The Kojibat, the gibbous moon, equivalent to Galliard. The Ki, crescent moon, equivalent to Theurge. And Rishi, the half moon, equivalent to Philodox. So, each of them has their own gifts and such, and so it's sort of like you have a birth auspice that governs, so instead of that birth auspice, basically it's a natural progression through all of them. And it's in the peaceful times, you would spend an entire lifetime experiencing all 5 of them. In modern times, however, though, Gurahl rushed through all the auspices in a few years and settled on the one that's most suitable to their temperament. Basically, or the most that's necessity of the responsibilities they've taken on as a long-term auspice. In modern days, this sometimes means going back to previous auspices or remaining on one for an intended time for the duty to require it. And, when you enter a particular auspice, you learn a gift of that auspice. You do not lose the ability to learn gifts from auspices you've traveled to in the past. So, if you've been in some of the old ones, you can still learn of them. But learning too many gifts outside one's current auspice is seen as poor judgment. Basically, if you learn them while you were in that auspice, that's fine, you know them. If you're in your current one, just learn the ones from that current one. So you could lose wisdom renown for dependence on hindsight, basically, seen as. Granted, there are times and places to learn ones from those other auspices as required, in certain circumstances. That would be, you need the right circumstances not to lose renown. It's possible. It could. So it's this an interesting idea that normally you just go through that cycle in your entire lifetime, but now you kind of... It's like going to high school and trying out a bunch of different languages to find the foreign language you want to take classes for. Except this one is an auspice. Yeah. The Arcus is governing from their first change through her Gallivant and time as her Burijan. I'll go into those. The Uzumati is the solitary travels in recent places and as a warrior Gaia. The Kobachu is guidance through a period of remembering and learning. Learns the lore of their people, song, history, and stories. The Kia, learning comes reflection and turning inwards, the hallmark of that, so it's sort of the mysticism side of things. And the Rishi is the last natural progression. You've built up the font of knowledge and experience, and others look to you for guidance, so to judge disputes, keep peace, and mediate quarrels between factions. So that's kind of like, it's the cycles of life too. So it's just like, you almost experience some of those cycles of life and then decide which one nowadays best moderns you for your personality and also for your role that you have to take in this modern world. But those are the auspices. Rites were simple. I have to talk about them a lot. Yeah. And, the Hamids are a little bit newer, That's a bit of a thing to say about them. There were no Hamid Werebears for many, many generations, and it's sort of like a new thing. It's a comeback. It was the Ursine breed, the Werebear breed, was exclusively where you were for a lot of generations. But the Gurahl have also been like, finding more humans that are appropriate to basically be as partners and kind of, increase their size and their groups and their connections. They look for different cultures and people that are involved in medical careers, peacekeeping duties, environmental activism, wilderness protection. Basically people that might be more willing to be, the other side of a, relationship with Werebear. And basically, they've been seeking out humans for that to basically build up both their Hamid and person star. They do believe in having both of them. And having more of a balance. Unlike many changing breeds. Balance. It turns out to be a good thing to have in a lot of these situations. And Gurahl are, good at having that and smart at having it. Anyway, let's talk about their forms. So, there are 5 forms, much like the Gurahl themselves, and they're analogous to that. They've got a Hamid form, a human form. The Arthrid, the near-man form, stronger and tougher than the Glabru of werewolves. In Arthrin form, they are said to have inspired legends of Sasquatches and similar creatures. Their Krynos form, their war form, is tough, strong, huge, between 10 to 16 feet tall, and weighing up to 1,200 pounds. Massive. Jornen is the near bear form, like an ancient cave bear, long claws, fangs. It's almost as large and powerful as Krynos, but with even more vicious bite and claw damage. And then the Ursus, their bear form, and takes the bear form that matches their tribe. So, a Hamid one would also do the same, too. Whew. Let's talk a little bit about their culture. Because we should talk a little bit about the culture and their ways of doing things. So the big thing about Gurahl is they are in general, solitary being. They travel the world alone. They seek to do their job on their own. It doesn't mean that we don't have meetings and gatherings. I'll talk about them. But in general, most times they live in these small numbers and travel on their own. There are exceptions that happen in certain circumstances. Things like, I'll talk about the tribes in a little bit here. The Ice Stalkers gather much more into packs because they come from Arctic areas. There are times when groups of them will get together to battle against a powerful enemy or threat that's going on. One that one of them would not be able to, take out. And when everything is done, when the area is either cleansed, if it's required the rite of cleansing, or the battle is over, whichever needed to be done, they then disperse because they've done their job. It's the fact that they all seek themselves as individuals that share healing and protection to a large range. They don't stay together so they can spread that to a massive amount of area. Now, the other major tradition as part of their culture I wanted to mention is the Gallivant and Bury John, which is an exception to the solitary way of life of the Gurahl. Basically, the exception to their solitary life is, soon after the first change, a new werebear receives a mythical call, in the form of dreams and visions. It leads them to a more experienced Gurahl, who becomes the fledgling's Bury John, or teacher. So they become a Gallivant, basically a group that goes together as teacher and pupil. So the Gallivant is the group of the two of them, the Bury John is the elder Gurahl that's the teacher of it, that's taking the young one under them, who's been led to them by dreams and visions once they first changed. They discover them, and it's a traditionally year-long excursion, but it occasionally does take a couple of years, particularly if the cub is destined to perform some important task for Guy or the Gurahl. So if you've got this big destiny, and it feels it's a very important place, you will oftentimes spend a couple of years with your Bury John. Bury John will sense it as like, I need to make sure to teach you even more. So, and then after you basically take care of your duties for a number of years, many feel inspired to become teachers themselves. They will use the ritual Dreams of the Bury John to send forth dreams and visions to call a new one to them. So basically they use the ritual to call forth. They're like, I have to find someone to teach. And then they set off a Gallivant now as the teacher, with their own student. So it's kind of an interesting kind of mentoring process. And it passes history, knowledge, information down from generation to generation. It does allow the Bury John to recover some of the wonder of youth they left behind during their own Gallivant. So it's sort of like you've had a lot of years of experience of doing your duty as part of being a Gurahl, and now you get to experience the wonder and majestic parts of this world that you're part of with your own student that you had during that time. It's this kind of, an interesting kind of juxtaposition in a lot of songs. And a Bury John will perform this ritual when they become aware of a newly changed cubs through first-hand knowledge or spirits. And sometimes the teacher will perform it without knowing there's a prospective student in an area, just in case there's an undiscovered cub who've gone without training. And there are times the Bury John will accept 2 students in an area where there aren't a lot of Gurahl to teach them. So basically, if there's your understanding is you're the only one that can teach these 2, you will take 2 on. You're like, look, it is unusual, but not unheard of, that I will take on 2 students. The 2 of you are new here. There is no one else to teach you, so I teach both of you at the same time. Come with me as we journey. I do like a lot of the lore. It's really, really neat kind of stuff. It's really fun. So those are some basic cultural points I wanted to go into when we talk about them. There is technically a code to them, but we'll go into that a little later. But they have certain types of meetings, times that they get together. And that's an important thing to discuss, too, because there are gatherings. First off is when 2 Gurahl meet each other by chance when they're wandering. They will hold something, if the circumstances allow, called a fest. Basically, it's a meeting around what would be effectively a campfire, sharing news, artwork, information, celebrating, things, if there's something going on, like a salmon run, peak of berry harvest, they'll celebrate that. It's a jubilant to meet another of your own kind and celebrate it a little bit if you have the opportunity. There's regalias that happen at the beginning of spring each year, where a Gurahl tribe hosts one and brings together as many members of the tribe as possible to basically discuss tribal matters. These are held at very far places to prevent outsiders or attacks from enemies from bothering them. This is a time when extended families gather together, share news, celebrate new births, mourn fallen relatives, matchmake with kin from distant areas to ensure tribal lineage continues strong and healthy. Because remember, they have a ritual for matchmaking I talked about, it's sort of like, so it's like, we've got to get figure out which one of these, people to matchmake with and stuff like that to ensure healthy blood. There's the dance of creation here, telling the oldest stories of the breed, a lot of stuff about that. There is during summer, you have intertribal gatherings called powwows, which last for several days. Groups from different tribes gather together, share information, display artwork and crafts, strengthen ties between the tribes. They can't take a lot of time from guarding your protected lands, so these are a vital part of the information system for the entire breed itself. And all Gurahl try to participate at least once per year in one of these summer events. These are our learning experience for cubs still on their Gallivant. So a new Gurahl, having a chance to introduce themselves to other breeds, to other tribes, and learn what it means to be as a Gurahl as an entire group, rather than just this one breed, this one tribe. There's no dancing in here, so only the Council of Autumn, which I'll talk about in a second, do Gurahl dance before members of tribes other than their own. That's an important note about it. Then there's the Council of Autumn, the Great Council. It's held during the fall of each year. It's far more elaborate and serious gatherings, the most elaborate and serious gathering of all Gurahl. Not all attend, but many feel this council is the most important meeting of the year. It's less formal than the powwows, regalia, and fests. The less formal of all those involve minor acts of ceremony. Formal rites are here at the Council of Autumn. So all those other meetings, they're less formal. This is your formal meeting. All undergo the ritual of cleansing before attending the council. Each tribe approaches the council site from a direction associated with it. Ice Stalkers from the north, Forest Keepers from the east, Blizzard Keepers from the south, Mountain Guardians from the west. The Great Council composed of Mate from all four tribes, using this meeting to rule on matters that affect the Gurahl as a whole, and any grievance that span tribal boundaries, to welcome new cubs. New cubs from all the tribes perform the ancient dance of centuries, which marks the only time which tribes dance together. So it's a very interesting time. The rarest Gurahl meeting, though, occurs in times of dire need, when one of four current Ancient Ones decides some disaster looms over them. The vulnerable Werebears sends out mysterious summons that draw all Gurahl, including those in hibernation, to a site where they can unite to defend their breed as some part of Gaia's creation. These meetings will only be held a few times in the tribe's history and are never called lightly. So that would be, remember, I talked about the great history where they awoken and defeated Storm Eater. That would have been a meeting the Great Ones, where the Great Ones, great-grandmother and great-grandfather, basically called forth all of them. Yeah. Basically, the highest rank is the Elder or Mate. That's what it was. Only one individual from each tribe holds this title, great-grandmother, great-grandfather, or just Ancient One at a time. Yeah. That's basically the rank beyond the normal ranking system of renown and stuff, which we can mention that a little bit too. They value honor, success, succor and wisdom. Succor is basically healing the world, removing taint, saving lives. That's the kind of thing. So, honor, showing respect and selflessly adhering to the code. Succor, healing stuff, and wisdom is discover and preserve ancient knowledges. Whew. Probably a good thing to talk about here. The traits of them. They do have rage. They have frenzy, much like Gurahl. Basically, they can fall to the thrall of the worm. It requires 8 success on a rage roll, and it's nothing can save the effect of the Beast of War or Eater of Souls. Basically, stave off the effects of that. So they can go into... You can reuse rage. They have rage, but much like that. And they have, poor... Basically, I talked about their physical. Okay. Let's talk about the tribes. Because that's probably a good thing to mention. There are 4 current tribes. But there was a 5th that was destroyed during the War of Shame. We'll talk about it. So first off, the Forest Walkers. They're a tribe of Black Bear Pharaoh from North America, and kinfolk are mostly Native Americans. They are some of the earliest Gurahl to inhabit the Pure Lands of North America and the woodland there and things like that. So they did feel the ravaging of the Europeans when they arrived. So they're one of the original ones there. There's the Ice Stalkers. So the Ice Stalkers are, of course, the ones that are the Polar Bear Pharaoh, known for artistry and appreciation for art. Excuse me. They were once accused by the Gurahl of bringing the Ice Age to serve the worm's purpose. An interesting idea. The more modern Gurahl who've never heard of or chosen to forget their ancestors' accusation that they kind of threw out this way. But these rumors and lies came near to bringing about the destruction of retired changing breeds, to the point there's a sore one with the Ice Stalkers. They have a keen interest in the polar bears, as well as the native people of Alaska and northern Canada, watching the Wendigo Gurahl carefully while staying out of their way. The problems of climate change and stuff like that. They try to maintain the lands of their kins and of various kins, basically, until not losing it. The Mountain Guardians is, of course, the youngest of all the tribes. They're the tribe of Grizzly Bear, based in western North America, who claim Native American kinfolk. They're the strongest of the Gurahl, and twitch themselves the strongest of the Pharaoh, in a way. Literal strongest. They do suffer from overconfidence in their ways of doing things. So, overconfidence is a slow and insidious killer. It's there. They learn to coexist with the Wendigo, Uktena, and the local Bastet. They served as shamans of the native northern tribes, and sometimes lived openly with American Indians in the Southwest. They cooperated with those who hunted with them in the past and worked with Gurahl to cleanse the Pure Lands and tainted the Pattern Breaker. They did withdrawal in mass when the European Gurahl arrived, leaving legend behind. But the return of Soul Eater signaled their re-entry to the world. Upon their return, having discovered during their absence the grizzly bear kin almost became extinct. They've maintained themselves and preserve their existing grizzly bear kinfolk, preparing them for the last battle. Basically, they're kind of like the warrior tribe almost. Then we have the River Keepers. Brown Bear Pharaoh, whose population was decimated after the War of Rage, mostly in North America and Russia now. But, effectively, they once dwelled along major rivers all over the world, including but not limited to the Nile, Amazon, Mississippi. During the War of Rage, their role as shamans and weather workers to the native populations of the years made them easy targets for Garo, and they died in very high numbers. So they went into hiding, of course, coming out when the need was great enough for the risk, and the Garo were completed their attempt at Ursine genocide. Along the Nile and Amazon, river keepers were utterly annihilated, and their duties, their lands, were taken over by Besetni area. In North America, they remained active longer, assisting the Garo in the Poor Lands in the fight against the worm, and kept a low profile during, when European counterparts came. The coming Storm Eater brought the river keepers out in force. When they returned from their wilderness and umbral dens that hid them, Ursine, they saw that their kin, Ursine human-like, had been abused, slaughtered, and driven from their native territories. They bolster work their existing bear populations as they can. They're dedicated to renewing their ancient ties with the world's waterways, and they give the armies of Gaia some unexpected resources in the final battles against the pattern. So, yeah. They've been largely driven out of Europe, Asia, Africa, and South America, with the majority of the tribe along the more remote rivers of Alaska, Russia, and Pacific Northwest. Some have sought out rivers in other parts of the world to make their home, taking up guardianship of those long-abandoned waterways in hope of healing the damage done through centuries of neglect and misfortune. So there are some that are trying to move into these other rivers since they were the more global group that there was. And there is an extinct tribe to talk about. The Okuma. They were the Gurahl of the East, slaughtered during the War of Shame. So this is a different thing than the War of Rage. The War of Shame it was a fight among the Hengayoke in the Fourth Age, instigated by Wan Xian manipulation. So, yeah, it was very similar to the War of Rage that decimated the fair in the West. Basically, the Werebears wanted no part in infighting in the peace course, retreated to the mountains. They persuaded other Pharaoh that they were definitely corrupt servants of the Centipede, and they were destroyed to a 1. Kisina Lezen claims that Prince Inanari sent an envoy to the last Okuma, and the bear shifter taught them gifts that might survive the War of Shame. So basically, they're kind of extinct. They were connected to the bears of Asia, moon bears, sun bears, and giant panda bears. Things happen. Let's talk about the code. Because the code is very simple, but we do want to kind of talk about it on its own. The Code of Ursa is basically a set of almost laws that you go over as a werebear. Cherish the cubs. Protect the land. Heal the sick. Nurture the needy. Teach the supplicant. Breed wisely. Cleanse the tainted. Guard the secrets. Rites of the elder. Remember your history. Punish the guilty. Avenge wrongful slaying. There really isn't more to this. This is kind of it for the the laws. It's just the terms for them. You just read it and it's exactly what it says for the code. It's an interesting thing that they just have this simple code, simple things that as long as you follow it, you're good to go. Just follow the code. I'm going to admit there might be more in the breed book for going into depths about the code, but it is a mess. Just going to say that because of the book is informative, hard to read, so keep that in mind. Okay, they do go into depths about the code a little bit more, so I'm not going to because I don't have a great copy here. But keep in mind, if you want to go more depth about the code and some of the way that these laws actually work, I recommend the breed book, Gurahl. They do go into more depth about this that they don't do in the change breed. But again, all these things are very what they are. Keep that in mind. Okay, so we're almost done here. We just want to talk about gifts rituals, and then make connections with other creatures. So, if we talk about gifts and rites, they're concerned with healing, purification, and a few martial prowess gifts, too. It's the thing that, a Gurahl isn't against fighting. It's just fighting is their last resort. They would rather just heal, learn, protect, purify, do that job. But when push comes to shove, they're ready to fight. And probably, honestly, the Mountain Guardians are probably more likely to have those martial powers anyway. All of them can learn the healing gift called Healing Tongue, which is equivalent to the Children of Gaia gift, Grandmother's Touch, and most do. The most extraordinary and well-guarded secret is returning the spirits of dead people to their bodies. This can only be achieved soon after death, and at great personal and spiritual cost, using the gift's Gaia's Breath. In case of dire need, they implore the rite of fighting the Death Bear, in which they must challenge Managi, an aspect of bear attuned to the death. This rite is only ever used to revive fallen shapeshifters, and even then, almost never on non-Gurahl. So, they do have basically ways of bringing back the dead. One that is near early death, and one that is a little bit more costly. They live in remote areas of the wilderness. They seldomly encounter other Fera. They have limited familiarity with Ananasi and Rokia. Almost none of at all with Ajaba, Naga, and Kitsune. They're happy the Rat King remain in cities, but they remain friendly relationship with Beset, Korax, Mokale, and Nuisha. Kind of missing the company of the Nuisha more than anything. They're getting along with them. They still do feel anger for the War of Rage, but again, it's one of those interesting things about the Gurahl. Because they're willing to look past it and work with the Garrett. They knew them once as little brothers. And the thing is, it's sort of like, I'm upset with you. You were once my little brother. But to stave off the apocalypse, I'm willing to look past it. It is a strength of the Gurahl. That's where we're kind of end it today, talking about the strength of the Gurahl. Both figuratively and literally, they are strong. A changing breed that faced extinction in an extreme way. Ones who have had an important role in the balance of the world for Thong. Healers of the world. They've returned now in this modern age because there's a need for them. But this need is not just that. It's the fact that their strength is required in a lot of ways. And have the Garou learned? Hard to say. Maybe. Certainly plenty of them. There are those that regret the War of Rage and feel like it is a thing that should have never occurred. Some still believe they should continue it. Varies the try. But the Gurahl exist. They've returned from their great slumber to bring back a balance that was perhaps lost. What is needed to continue the fight and prevent the Atom Breaker from the worm from ending everything, which seems like it still constantly wants to do. The apocalypse has been called off for now. There are signs of it coming. Doesn't mean it's going to not try to rear its ugly head again. And the battle will continue, and the Gurahl will continue to do what they do. Purify, heal, protect, and teach. Anyway, that's it for today. I did love talking and learning and getting more into the Gurahl this week. I knew a little bit about them, but today's episode was a fun one because when I did all the research, I got to learn even more about them. It's one of those things that I do like about when I do these World Darkness videos. Not only do I usually know a little bit, I can learn more. Learn a little bit more of those depths about them and their interesting things about them. As I said earlier, hey, if you're on Twitch, check out YouTube, do all the support stuff there. If you're on YouTube, check out the Twitch side, do all the support stuff there. Just the basic stuff, just to give it in. And my comment still stands. We played Gurahl before. That's a little bit more for YouTube now at this point in time. Other stuff that you're looking for, I do tabletop stuff that goes up all live on YouTube, so make sure you can always check it out on YouTube. But if you want to catch me live doing any of that tabletop stuff, that's Tuesdays, Thursdays, Saturdays. Tuesdays, Thursdays, usually between 1 and 2 in the afternoon, depending on earlier or later, sometimes depending on life schedule. Tuesdays is basically variety days. Thursdays is Pathfinder Olirant days. And of course the Saturdays, which is usually around 11 o'clock, give or take. Usually because I have a pretty heavy schedule, I have to have as close to 11 as possible. That's our World of Darkness days. 11 in the morning on Saturday if you want to see World of Darkness stuff live. Other tabletop stuff, I have a live show currently, as of the time of streaming and recording this episode. That's on Wednesdays, 9 p.m. EST. Crimson Queen is Pathfinder First Edition live play. Recommend checking it out. Really fun, really great people. Always good to see a live play of tabletop games. I love the group we have. We have a lot of fun. And then Saturdays at 6 p.m., later on from today, it's Discussing Tabletop. Tabletop discussion show. We talk about topics of the week and things like that. Join us, learn what's going on. Some deep discussions on things. I do some gaming streams Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays. If you want to check those out, usually around the morning or late morning. And then if you want to see social media, I have Discord and Twitter.com. It's places where I give schedules, kitten pictures, and random thoughts about existence itself, which all happen occasionally. So that's my kind of jam of stuff to talk about. That's it. I always think that's it. There's other great ways to support me, but, you know, those are all optional up to you, and there's more I established some of those and fix them up and things like that I haven't done. I'll shout them out. But, hey, I hope you enjoyed. I love talking about World of Darkness. I love talking about lore. I love this world that they kind of built. It's an interesting and dynamic one. One that is fun to talk about. So I hope you enjoyed learning about it as you always do. But until the next time we talk about World of Darkness or any other to do deep discussion topics, we've got a lot of them out there. I bid all of you out there a wonderful and wholehearted farewell.